Legislative updates as of January 27th.
Welcome to Legislative Updates. I am your host, Eric Warwick, and I'm going to give you some updates on what is happening in Olympia. I'm going to discuss a few bills, and then I'm going to explain a key part of the legislative calendar. To start, yesterday was the Arc of Washington Civil Rights Advocacy Day. That coincided with the Shut Them Down Coalition's in-person and virtual rally to close residential rehabilitation centers, also known as RHCs. RHCs are also known as institutions. Self-advocates and our state's designated protection and advocacy system, Disability Rights Washington, have for years demanded the RHCs be closed. Self-advocates made shutting down the RHCs a priority in the grassroots North Star Coalition efforts. On Monday, a bill dropped to do just that. This bill, called SB 5938, forces DSHS to plan to close the institutions, and it makes a deadline for that plan. The bill forces DSHS to make sure 1/5 of people are transferred from the RHCs to the community in 3 years. And it makes sure everyone is moved out of the RHCs by the last day of 2028. If this bill passes, the RHCs will not have anyone in them on the first day of 2029. That is almost 7 years from now. SB 5938 does not change federal law. Under federal law, people who are eligible to live in institutions are entitled to live in one. People who do not want to live in institutions must waive their right to live in one. That is why some services are called waivers. This entitlement to live in an institution, but not to have community services, is known to advocates as the institutional bias. The institutional bias is a federal policy that the state legislature cannot change. That said, there is a bill in Congress called the HCBS Access Act. The HCBS Access Act would get rid of the institutional bias in federal Medicaid policy. HCBS stands for Home and Community-Based Services. Self-advocates are supporting SB 5938. They point to the lived experiences of many people who are mistreated, abused, and neglected in the institutions. Many self-advocates supporting this bill were mistreated, abused, and neglected in the institutions. They also mention the reports the protection and advocacy system has made on the RHCs showing problems of abuse and neglect. Self-advocates also say the institutions are oppressive and they want everyone to be free. At the Arc of King County, our goal is to further the civil rights movement for all persons of intellectual and developmental disabilities to thrive as equal, valued, and active members of the community. You can comment on the bill by clicking Comment on this bill on the bill's page. That page is linked below. The bill's page will also bring you to the full text of the bill, which is less than 2 pages long. Another bill self-advocates in the North Star Coalition are advocating for is HB 2008. This bill will make it so IQ tests are not used when deciding whether you can get developmental disability services. That bill had a hearing on Tuesday, and the Appropriations Committee will vote on it tomorrow. You can give your opinion on the bill by clicking Comment on this bill on the bill's page. That webpage is linked below. Another bill advocates are excited about is called HB 1153. That bill increases language access in public schools. Language access means things like interpreters. This could make sure parents of students with disabilities know their rights whether they speak English or not. The bill is championed by Open Doors for Multicultural Families. Open Doors shares the federal Parent Training and Information Center grant with PAVE. They focus on supporting families of color, particularly immigrant families. HB 1153 is scheduled to be voted on at the time of this recording. You can give your opinion on the bill by clicking Comment on this bill on the bill's webpage. That webpage is linked below. Next, there's a very important day coming up next week. On Thursday, February 3rd, the legislature will have its first bill cutoff. Bill cutoff dates are deadlines for bills. For this one, if a bill hasn't passed a committee by the end of the day Thursday, it will die. The only exception to this bill cutoff date are bills in the House Fiscal Committees and the Senate Ways and Means and Transportation Committee. So, if there is a bill that you really want passed and it has not been heard in committee yet, now is definitely the time to make some emails or calls to your legislators. The Arc of Washington has the full 2022 legislative session calendar as a PDF on their website. That PDF is linked below. Thank you so much for watching Legislative Updates, and keep advocating!